sued by someone else, or something shit happens because the system is not good, the SOP is not good. Have control level ownership, start to add nice to have, but have high defense team. Start consider excellency level formation and board formations, and invest in training and developments, because you need to retain and you need to promote and you need to upgrade the employees, right? And monitor progress. I think there is one case that I love in HR memes, yeah, that the CEO tell the finance or the HR, hey, we need to train our employee. They need to upgrade. Then the HR or finance will feedback, hey, what if the employee that you train leave the company and they will join another company? You have spent the money, but then they left the company and the investment will be used for the other company. Then the CEO will feedback. Can you imagine if we are not training them and they are not upgrading and they stay? How it will kill the company, right? How it will not beneficial for the company, how it will downgrade the company. So I think that kind of discussion need to be happening in the transition process to be matured, to be IPOs level, to be 500 billion revenue per month level, and the other kind of level that we can define for lah. So the last one, monitor progress. So all the same, all transition, all the same, monitor progress. Whatever progress or metrics that you think priority, we need to monitor. So I think from all these stories about the transitions, about the stages that we experience, I believe none of them are easy. Even I'm still learning. In fact, even I'm still doing a trial and error. But these points are the hacks how to keep the development or change, how we adapt with the development and change lah. From the small companies to the bigger companies, there is an evolutions, and we believe the employee we cannot assume all the employee are resistance. We cannot assume all the people in that employee are resistance. So we need to have the best transition hacks that might work, or that will definitely work lah. So I think from these points, it's all based on my real experience, from my real stories, from my real professional experience, and really happy to share all of this with you lah. And hopefully you can learn something from my experience, so you're not repeating the same fail, or you might be even success faster from this hacks or from these transitions points. And I think I continue the materials to challenges in organizational change here. I keep using the word of resistance because people will not be resistant, and even the system will not be resistance. Like when you have an SOP with low tech managing 1,000 transactions, it can be resistance. But when the transactions move to 10,000 transactions, your system will not be resistant. Your system will not be resistance. Like the server might not be resistance. Like the memory might not be resistance. Like the logic might not be resistance. So resistance to change not only happen in people, but also in system and SOPs. Lack of communications. This is just a classic one lah. When there is no coordination on target changes or North Star metrics changes or whatever changes that happens. Lack of communication or coordinations. Insufficient leadership. That's why I'm putting in the transitions to growth stage, adding more C-levels, because having only 1 to 2 C-levels is not enough to manage the growth stage company or even the matured company. As you imagine, in a matured company, there are multiple level of C-levels. Like you can call it CFO, COO, CMO, CIO, CSO, whatever C-level you have. Make sure it's really impactful to the company. And I think this is also something that I cannot share in detail because of the time limit. The changes also not driven by such evolution factor only. What I have just shared is the changes or development based on size evolutions or growth evolutions. But there are many factors that might cause changes or development in organizations. The first one is manpower generational changes. Like when the companies has operating like 10 years, I believe the generational changes gap is there. So the evolution the size or the volume might the same, but the generational changes is there to keep the company resist from the industrial changes or the globalization changes lah. The climate change or ecological. Because of this, there is a supply challenges. and the business need to be pivot because the supply problem is there. Like raw materials is not happening anymore. The raw material location is changes. The raw materials distribution logistic is there. The new tech. So I cannot, I can tell a lot of explanation about this, but as you can imagine, when there is a new tech, AI, software systems or whatever you call it, like when Gojek disrupt Bluebird, I think demand behavioral changes and business need to pivot as well. Because as you know, when when there's a new tech, there is a new demand or there is a new behavior, and the business need to be adapt. Like if you can remember Indomie, how they are being distributed back then was all offline. Like you can found in Warung, you can found in Indomaret and everything, but now they have multiple layers of distributions. It can be from e-commerce, it can be from TikTok shop, it can be from many other things, even referral programs. So they need to adapt. They might have the same product, but the distribution need to be adapted because the new tech is there, the main behavioral changes is there. And the fourth one is competitions. When there is a new competitors coming with the more advanced product, more advanced distributions, then the changes must happen. The development must happen. And these factors will affect the changes or development from an organization or a company. So a study case, I think you guys know Gojek case, from only 3 employees in a garage, and now they are becoming an IPO companies. They are experiencing multiple level of organizational change or organizational developments, and they are successfully doing that. From Series A company to Series B company to Series C company, they have different level of behaviors. From output process to from output driven to process driven. They have multiple different level of C-levels hiring, managerial level hiring, vice president level hirings. And I can say Bluebird also the success case. I can say they are the only taxis that resistance from the industry changes. Yeah, I can mention the yellow brand, the green brand, and everything. But Bluebird is the one who resistance from the changes, and it because they remodel the manpower, they remodel the system, they remodel the SOP, they remodel the leadership. There's also Apple. I think if you read a lot of model about Apple, from only selling a computer to selling the laptop to selling an iPod, and currently they are even the biggest. I think number 2, yeah. Number 1 is Nvidia, the chip company, yeah, that currently supports a lot of big brands. They're also success case story. I don't have so much luxury time to tell about all these success case, but you can definitely go through the cases from ChatGPT or Google and everything, and you can have a lot of stories from the inception of the company to the growth stage to the mature company to the IPO companies. There are a lot of changes and development from all these companies lah. I also provide a failure case here. I don't know about you guys, but I have experienced Kaskus. But Kaskus now gone because they cannot adapt with changes. They cannot adapt with competitions. They cannot adapt with new tech. They cannot adapt with demand changes. They cannot adapt with supply changes. And you can read a lot about Kaskus. We have also MatahariMall.com that currently also turned down or turned off. You can read a lot about them, but this is also one of failure cases that you guys can learn on. The transition is not good. The transition is not correct. The people that is being hired is not correct. Then they are not working anymore lah. Merpati Airlines as well. You can search Merpati cases from how the management evolve and how the management cannot resist or cannot adapt with the new behavior or new tech or the new airplane model or new airplane experiences. That's why they also not continue. Nokia, I think it was familiar cases that you might have heard or you might have learned as well, that they cannot adapt with BlackBerry, they cannot adapt with Android, they cannot compete with all these brands. I think the product is the end point. Yeah. I think the product is the end point. What has to change is the human as well. Is the human first, the management first, the leadership first, the North Star metrics first. And after that, your product becoming an endpoint. When you really realize what are the changes factors that is coming from new tech, new supply, new business size evolutions, new generational changes, I believe there is a change actions that will be taken from the management or even from the boards or from the investors there or the shareholders. So I think Nokia also the failure case that you might have learned deeper, yeah, compared with other cases. So I think my materials end there. Really love to introduce what I'm doing now here. But before I end the materials or presentations, is there any one of you would like to ask something or would like to clarify something that I might be, fast enough to share? Is there anyone would like to ask questions, please?
Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat or open your mic. Yeah.
Sure.
You can also ask in Indonesia.
Please, please, please.
Saya.
Hai, Tian.
Halo Kak.
How's it?
Perkenalkan nama saya Septian. Saya
Sure.
kelas DCM. Pertanyaannya, saya lebih menonjol ke perusahaan Nvidia ya Kak.
Sure.
Apa yang membuat perusahaan Nvidia sangat menonjol di bidang AI dan mempunyai omset paling tinggi di seluruh dunia?
Sure.
Dan barang dan strategi marketingnya itu seperti apa yang dia lakukan, perusahaan Nvidia lakukan untuk market
Sure.
di bidang teknologi.
Sure. By the way, kamu
Terima kasih.
jurusan apa ya? Manajemen.
Manajemen.
Manajemen. Concentration-nya?
Ya.
Concentration-nya
Oh, digital marketing.
Oh, digital marketing. Nice.
Digital marketing.
Back then, zaman aku belum ada digital marketing. Good one. Okay. I cannot share a lot ya on Nvidia. You can learn a lot about this. Kalau mau tanya tentang my personal experience, I can deeper on that. But short story about Nvidia, it's a good question. I think satu, choosing right partners ya. Choosing right partners is real. I can mention several competitors name of Nvidia. Cuma I think what makes them different with other chips are they are choosing the right partners. Second is agile. I forget the exact years yeah, but in 2017 to 2018 in these years transitions, they are the only chip product makers that paling berani to masuk ke non-exist gadget or outputs ya back then. They are just imagining that the CPU process or the CPU power is 10x or 20x, and then they start to do research and development, and then they create that chips. And once it hits COVID period, the chip is ready. They are 3 years earlier compared with other chips. Like you can mention the other like Intel and everything. But to summarize the story of Nvidia, banyak poinnya ya. Cuma yang bikin mereka beda tuh menurut aku dua. Satu, they are choosing the right partners. They are not only distributing the products, but they are also complementing the end products capability and capacities. Like you can mention several laptops that they are supporting or several phone or gadget they are supporting. Itu yang pertama. Yang kedua, I think they are risk taking ya. They are risk taking on imagining the future, and they are making something that not even exists, but they believe it will exist. I forget the technical names ya, karena aku bukan anak IT or tech lah gitu. But they are 3 years faster or 3 years advanced compared with other competitors. And when the product exists, then they said, hey, I have the tech, I have the chips, I have the end product ready, and you guys can just use it with this price, with this readiness, with this supply readiness. I think 2 story itu yang paling nyangkut sih. The rest tuh kayak dia bikin complementary end product, dia bikin the size of chips yang paling kecil dan lain-lain. I believe the other competitors also doing the same thing. Tapi yang bikin beda tuh 2 itu, yang menurutku unpredicted move ya. Jadi dia berani doing research and development to something that's not exist, then they are maintaining the really right partnership with stakeholders or brands or end product principles ya that they are working on lah. Jadi if you know Apple juga bikin sekarang gitu kan. Ya menurutku dari sisi chips size ya Apple terlalu telat even though they have the tech gitu kan. Cuma by distributions Nvidia is more flexible. They don't have any dependencies to one brand ya, or to one principles or to one group. They have multiple layers. So jadi dengan metode choosing the right partners will also manage their risk lah. If they are losing one, they are losing two, they are still resist with change because they are managing the partners well. Semoga menjawab pertanyaannya, Septian. Good questions, good question.
Iya. Sama satu lagi sih, ini pertanyaan lanjutan sih Kak, menurutku.
Boleh dong.
Kan dia sekarang market cash value-nya itu mencapai 3 miliar dolar ya.
Ya, the
Dari
biggest
yang aku riset.
valuations company in the world currently. Aku nggak tahu hari ini ya, tapi
Ya, kurang lebih.
kemarin masih. Kemarin udah
Ya,
ngalahin
sekitar.
Tesla, udah ngalahin Apple. Ya.
Iya, maksud bagaimana sih cara dia mungkin bikin proposal atau branding ketika kepada investor gitu
Good question.
bahwa dia tuh menciptakan produk yang kayak ini nih saya menjual chip yang akan booming di masa depan gitu.
Good
yang
question.
yang akan profitnya tuh berkali-kali lipat gitu.
Good question.
Apa sih yang dia itu?
Good questions.
Terima kasih.
I worry kalau kita ke Nvidia terlalu technicals nih bahasanya. Coba kita lowering our cases like Gojek ya, gitu kan. The first thing first, foundationnya harus strong. Product foundationnya harus strong. Jadi I don't know in the future you wanna be an entrepreneur or you wanna be a professional C-level or not. But for me, from my real experience, I think the foundational product need to be strong. What is foundational product of Gojek? It was GoRide, right? It was GoRide. And GoRide was super successful. And from GoRide, they are expanding to GoPay. And from GoPay, they are now expanding to lending and everything. Same with Nvidia. Their first chip was working powerfully to multiple layers of products. And products, B2B products, consumer products. So what we are seeing here is a very credible portfolio that the company delivered to the market or to the stakeholders. So the first promise is your foundation product strong or not? Just like in Gojek and Nvidia cases, right? So if your strong product foundation is strong, you can always expand to many other layers product. Like in Gojek, they put GoPay. Even they put GoMassage back then, right? Even they put something else. As well as Nvidia, they can evolve something else because the promises is there, the reputation is there. So like your questions, right? How we convince the investors? You cannot convince the investors if you don't have portfolio, right? If you're not delivering anything at the first phase. So by having Gojek and Nvidia cases, even Apple cases, like the Mac story, right? They are groundbreaking the whole launch of homemade PC well. So it's a first portfolio, the first foundational product. Then they are growing. Currently, even you have the software itself and everything, right? So by answering your questions, convincing investors, convincing shareholders, convincing the markets by delivering your past promises well, by delivering your past portfolio well. So that's the first step. And the second step, obviously, future story lah. You know, Nvidia has delivered a lot of promises well, has delivered a lot of market requests well, right? Now they're becoming big, not because only investors is just a cost, right? But they just simply deliver the promises to the market. Then they're becoming the number one because they can deliver everything well. Then from that point, what is the future promises? The future promises is AI. The future promises is, I don't know, crypto that currently they might support, right? So from that two factors, there are many factors, but what I mean is the two main factors are first, keep deliver your portfolio well, keep deliver your first foundational product well. And second, you have future story that will fit with the word, with what the word needs. Like Gojek, they need better payment system than cash payment, right? They built GoPay. Then investor will give blessing. Investor will give approval. So that's how it works. Not only making data, fancy data, cosmetic data. You need to deliver your product well. You need to deliver your promises well. And second, is your story fit with the future needs, world's need or not? But anyway, that's a good questions from you, Septian. Semoga menjawab.
Terima kasih banyak, Kak. Kasih.
Sama-sama. Anyone else? Anyone else? Sure. Tadi Alivia duluan kayaknya angkat tangan. Silakan Alivia.
Baik, Kak Novel, terima kasih atas waktunya untuk saya. Saya akan bertanya dalam bahasa Indonesia, nggak masalah ya?
Aman dong, aman dong.
Oke,
Silakan.
jadi saya sebenarnya tertarik banget sama profilnya Kak Novel ya, yang awalnya di FMCG, terus ke startup, terus sekarang akhirnya jadi entrepreneur ya istilahnya.
Ya.
Terus hal yang menarik bagi saya adalah as we know kan apa ya, from the surface gitu kan, anak-anak sekarang kan kalau ngelihat pekerjaan tuh enaknya kerja di startup, enak ya kalau kerja di istilahnya di space yang istilahnya secara fasilitas udah oke, ya kan ada tempat game dan lain-lain, pasti kayak dream dream banget ya, kayak Jakarta dream banget kan untuk kerja di SCBD gitu kan istilahnya. Nah, pertanyaan terbesar saya kan untuk sampai ke titik itu kan pasti diperlukan kualifikasi yang nggak main-main dong. Saya lihat kemarin iseng-iseng lihat karir di beberapa perusahaan besar seperti warna oranye, warna hijau gitu. Kualifikasi pertama mereka adalah seenggaknya pernah bekerja di top FMCG gitu, atau enggak pernah bekerja di hijau atau pernah bekerja di perusahaan yang sejalan gitu. Gimana ya caranya kita sebagai fresh graduate, yang saya alamin saat ini kan memang untuk kuliah itu kan fokusnya study ya kan, istilahnya kuliah mengerjakan skripsi selesai gitu kan. Tapi step-stepnya untuk kita dapetin hard skill dan soft skill yang dibutuhkan perusahaan itu tuh ternyata sangat masih panjang gitu, progresnya gitu kan. Kira-kira apa sih yang dilakukan Kak Novel supaya bisa istilahnya keterima kerja gitu di perusahaan seperti ini? Karena saya yakin nggak pinter doang nggak akan cukup gitu ya.
Betul.
Oke, gitu aja sih. Terima kasih ya Kak Novel.
Thank you. Good questions. Ini aku jawabannya agak lapangan banget ya, agak orang lapangan banget ya. Jadi don't be surprised with my answer. Jawabannya adalah orang dalam. I keep my network with Mem Genoveva well, with internship career center team ya waktu itu ya di PU ya. I keep my network well with them. I keep my network well with marketing team dulu Presiden Persiti. I keep my network well with rectorates and many other important people lah in the campus ya, in the university. And they help me out. Even my first internship in Toyota tuh dulu dibantu oleh Mem Genoveva juga, MJC, and internship career center people gitu kan. Dulu there are several companies that offered me like Ruang Guru, Toyota, terus forget another one ya. Ada 3 kalau nggak salah. But I see Toyota is the best stepping stone, and dibantu waktu itu sama kampus. And I enter Toyota. Cuma what I'm saying is bukan jadi penjilat juga ya. Tiba-tiba Mem Genoveva nih aku bikinin kopi, aku bikinin kue gitu kan, aku bawain makanan. Enggak begitu. That's not how it works gitu istilahnya. Even in fact I was the assistant dean of almarhum dulu ada head of study program juga gitu kan. I help them out gitu. I really want to help them sincerely lah. I even begadang-begadang dulu di marketing di ICC just to help the persons to contribute to their work lah gitu kan. And then from that point they will see our qualifications ya. Are we worth it to be referred ya? Are we worth it to be recommended to a company as big as Toyota, Nestle dan lain-lain gitu kan? Are we worth it gitu? Are we have that what it takes gitu kan? Because pertama-tama ya you need to help out first lah. Then I join Toyota. Even the next I join Nestle juga waktu itu juga diundang. I join Bukalapak because one of Bukalapak director dulu inviting me to join Bukalapak. One of Nestle director dulu di hijack Bukalapak. Then he invited me to join Bukalapak gitu kan. Then investors di Manufa, Rara, Tanihub Group gitu kan. I was having a good network and connection with them because I helped them out doing consulting dan lain-lain gitu kan. Then they invite me to join their portfolio gitu. So the power of orang dalam is real. Cuma don't take it as a wrong statement. Don't take it as a wrong statement, please. You need to help them out first. Even dulu tuh di Toyota sama di Nestle sama di Bukalapak dulu tuh aku kerjanya sampai begadang-begadang. I really want to deliver the promises ya. I really want to deliver what my boss wants gitu, what my the one who brings me in want gitu istilahnya. So I don't care what is my salary, I don't care how big my salary was. Even dulu di Nestle gaji juga cuma I think 6 million ya, pretty small, dan aku dilempar ke timur, ke Papua, and I'm good with that, dilempar ke Papua, karena dulu belum nikah juga, belum punya anak juga, begadang-begadang kerjaannya just to make sure I am outperforming everybody gitu kan, and my boss and my manager itu merasa terbantu, and they can consider me as a top talent lah. So I don't really see how much they pay me, how much I get and everything, but I harvest a lot in the next stages lah di company-company berikutnya, because like in Bukalapak I led like about 1,000 people. It just because I show the responsibility, I show the ownership gitu kan, even though the salary is still small, but again we are young, we can risk everything. Like I can tell you guys before, you can always risk everything. Don't think too much about pulang jam 6 sore, pulang jam 5 sore gitu kan, pulang jam 7 sore aja. I think don't think too much about it. Especially you guys that want to be an entrepreneur ya, you need to work harder gitu kan, or you want to be a C-level or VP or whatever you call it, you need to work harder, and don't think too much about pulangnya jam berapa gitu kan. Even I sometimes work in weekend back then, just to make sure we outperform, we fast enough lah and everything. Terus tadi sentuh juga soal kualifikasi. Aku dulu di manajemen study program itu konsentrasinya dulu HR gitu ya, and I work mostly in business development lah. I think thanks to the study program, but what I want to deliver first is just to prove that you can deliver work sih. Dulu juga di HR challenge-nya sama, coba bikin dokumen A, B, C, D gitu. Deadline-nya jam 5 sore ya, dikasih tahu jam 9. I make it done at 1 PM, I make it done at 11 AM gitu kan. I don't want to be mediocre gitu sih, yang jam 5 harus selesai gitu. Apalagi deadline-nya harus telat ya, ke jam 6 sore atau baru besoknya disubmit gitu. It's not the qualification that the company wants. It's not the qualification that the startup wants gitu kan. You need to outperform. You need to deliver the target faster, bigger, sooner gitu kan. So aku nggak ada teori atau jawaban lain ya selain itu gitu kan. You cannot consider how much salary you receive. You need to give more. You need to sincerely give more. You need to sincerely deliver what the company needs, what the boss needs gitu kan. So you can be considered as one of the best qualified candidates lah. Gitu sih paling. Semoga menjawab, Alivia.